Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited for this episode. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Mark Twain. Our guest today is the Sales Connection himself, unbreakable, being unbreakable. One of the most powerful people I know. We met years and years and years ago, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, speaker, one of the best podcast guests that you could find. Episode 50. If you haven't heard that on the Culture Matters podcast, you need to tune into that episode after this episode. Kayvon Kay is a beast and a good friend and a great supporter of the Culture Matters podcast. So thanks for coming back, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Much love. I always appreciate being here. New year.
It's in 2024. I'm curious if you were to look back and say to those in 2023 that feel like they were dragging, what could they look at themselves in the mirror and say, I didn't do enough because
I'm not going to sit here and just say, you got to, get better, get motivated. And here's the 5 steps. Let me tell you a story. Let me actually tell you what's going on with my life personally. And then hopefully through that story, it gives them the motivation, right? So we all have these dreams. We all have these things we write down and we say, this is going to be a breakthrough year, right? And so last year, I truly believed in my heart that it was actually going to be the break, the year that you break through. And I think I think it's like almost every 5 years, ideally you have some big breakthroughs, like changes. At least that's how I've always lived my life. So take a step back, not the story, but just taking a step back, because that's what we do here, right? Culture Matters. Is when I was in sales and I was a sales rep, I always looked at my it depended on the life, the sales cycle, but I always looked at it like 5 years, kind of 4 to 5 years. Year one, I'm coming in, I'm going to learn. My goal is just to keep up. My goal, if I can even keep up, I'm great. Because a lot of people have these false expectations. Tony Robbins says it best. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year. We underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And I take that pretty close to my heart, because I believe it's true. So, year one, you come in, you kind of, if you're in sales team, you want to just, depending on the sales cycle, right? Like just be with everybody, like you learn and grow. Year two is when you start separating yourself. That's when you start becoming in the top 5%. Maybe you're not winning the award number 1, but you're getting up there. You're starting to make moves. By year 3, depending, you're number 1, right? So you ride out, because in year 3 you grow to number 1. It's not like year 3, Jan 1st, I'm number 1. No, that's the year you grow to number 1. So that's when year 5 is my moving year. That's the year when I start looking. That's the year when I start accepting, or I start asking the question, do I like being number 1 here? And do I want to be number 1 here for the next 5 more years? Or I've tasted what number 1 is here. And you know what? I realize it's not as good as I thought it was. Time to move on. Because if so, this is where people get it wrong. They think, okay, well, let me wait on a 5-year plan. Let me wait till year 5, because then year 6 magically happens. No. If you want year 5 to happen to a new industry all over again, you got to start working year 3. Just like I was going to say, New Year's resolutions. The reason you probably didn't actually make your goals is because you set your goals on January 1st. Guess what? Not Kayvon. My goals for the new year was set Q4, the beginning of Q4. October 1st, I set what my goals were going to be for January, because I know it takes time, energy, and new habits to come. So if I set this goal, all of a sudden, I'm going to be in the gym every day. Every day I'm going to be in the gym, January 1st. Well, guess what? The chance of me going to the gym every day that first week is pretty actually low. Not high. Wow. But I went to the gym every single day in November and December. And now guess what January's week looks like? Every single day, because I've already created that habit. I'm starting the new year off the right way. So I think right out of the gate, that's where people go wrong, right? Because then they expect the result by January 31st. And that's why when you go to the gym February 1st, what do you got? Nobody's in the gym. It's all the regulars. I've been there all year round, right? Because it's just these empty goals, right? So I want to go back to the story. I had the goal that 2023 was going to be the break year. Why? Because I was actually born November 23rd. So I was like, isn't like, you have these things. And halfway to 2023, I was very frustrated, because I realized I've already lost it. Like, I know things take time. That's not going to be a breakthrough year. So I got down, I got upset, I beat myself up. Business was still moving and everything, but I'm talking internally, it was a struggle. I had to go higher. So I went out, and again,
Wow.
I've been down this road as an entrepreneur. You know, we have your ups and we have your downs, but we learn. And this time around, I ain't doing this alone, and I'm not going to sit in my struggle for long, because I know the longer I sit, the longer it is and harder it is to get out. Right. So I go and hire the coaches, the mindset coach, the breath coach, the business coach, the communication coach, and the internal coach. Right. And I worked with them. And now I sit back after I've gone through it all, and you ask, you know, how was 2023? And I go, a year which I thought was a breakthrough year actually turned to be one of the greatest years of my life, which was a learning year. I learned what I needed not to do. I learned what I needed to become as a CEO of the Sales Connection if I want to have that breakthrough year. And now guess what? 2024 will be the breakthrough year, because I set up and I've created all the things that I need to put in place for it to become a breakthrough year. I was watching a podcast, whatever, you know, YouTube video, and a guy said this, and I'm going to butcher the shit out of it. I'm going to have you, because you're amazing at this. You're going to clean it up for me. But he said something which was like, it was just this most powerful thing for me. And it was, when I was younger, when I was like 2021, I had set this goal. I set this dream that I was going to be, I had first was my first 6 figures at 26. So when I turned, again, remember, I was not lucky, one of these lucky entrepreneurs, I call luck, who figured out the school system was a bullshit, you know, was a bullshit failure. I had to go through it. So I didn't actually graduate university, my second degree, until I was 25. So I didn't even hit the working force. I was a drunken mess until I was basically 25, right? So right when I left the university, I said my first year, first 6 by 26. And I did that. So then I thought, well, that's easy. That was easy. It wasn't really that easy, but I did it. Well, then I'm going to do my first million by 30. Right? So then I didn't get to my first million at 30. And what does that do? Crushes you, right? It crushes you. And forever, I always like felt like a failure because of that. I was like, I didn't get it. I failed. And then I was listening to this podcast, and the guy said something like, when you're setting goals, when your old self has no clue of how to set the new goal, meaning it was kind of like, what right? I was so uneducated and so stupid. Like, I just like to think that you can just go from $100,000 to $1 million, because like the person who set that $1 million goal was not in any capacity capable of setting that goal. And there was a huge learning. It was a huge thing for me that happened last year, because I was like, oh my God, I've been beating myself up all based off of me not reaching a goal that I wasn't even capable of setting. I should have set, I did 100, maybe you should have set the 500. Guess what I would have done? I would have succeeded. Yeah. And I wouldn't have been beating myself up for the last 6 years wondering why I didn't make that goal. So this year, and I always knew about making achievable goals, right? But I was so naive. I actually felt good. It felt, oh, that feels good. But how do you break that down, right? So this year I tell people, like, it's not about goal setting. It's about go getting. I don't like all these people. We set goals, and I get it. Like, sometimes you need to set goals, and they work. They work if you're not a go-getter. If you're someone who needs to set that goal because you need to read every single day and you need to get yourself in the right mindset every single day, then you got to go set your goals. But guys like me, I told you, I set my business goals back in Q4, and I know what they are. I don't need to go read it every single day. I know what they are because I set them. They're like the back of my hand. And I know every day, in order for me to achieve those goals, I have to ask myself this question every single day. Is what I'm doing today helping me get to that goal? If the answer is no, there's no questions, there's no excuses, there's no there's no justification. Is what I did today going to get me to that goal? And if the answer is no, stop it. Stop it immediately. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your emotions think, because your emotions don't make you the millions of dollars. Your emotions don't build you a business. The logic and the right activities and doing the right things is what's going to make you successful, not your emotions. If I let my emotions run my life, I would not be where I am today. I'll tell you that. Because I'm an emotional creature. So I have to fight that every day. Now, that's a hard thing. How do you do that? A lot of therapy. I don't care what anyone says. A lot of internal work. If you got a lot of self-awareness. And the hardest one, even I have a hard time saying it, self-love, true self-love.
What is that?
Do you completely, deeply love and accept yourself? Do you actually love who you are? Love your shortcomings, love your differences, love that you have a place in this world, and you know, if you know yourself well, you know you're supposed to be doing a certain thing. And do you actually love the idea of that? Or are you living in someone else's shoes? Another way I always say this, the grass is greener on the other side. No, it's not. The grass is only greener on the other side is because it's the grass you're watching someone else feed. If you want your grass greener, stay on your side and water the damn grass. Watch how green it gets, right? And a lot of people are scared of themselves. I'll tell you this, one of life's lessons isn't that we set goals too low and succeed. One of the biggest problems isn't that we shoot our goals too high and fail. It's we shoot our goals too low and we succeed. That's the biggest problem I see in this world, right? We have these small goals for ourselves. We get to them and we go, oh, well, I'm happy. And it's like, really? Are you? If you truly are happy, great. Good on you. Good on you. But if you're listening to this, Culture Matters, you're listening to this and you want greatness in your life because you ain't watching podcasts because you want to be average. You never got in your average car and drove down the average highway and went to the average restaurant and parked at the average parking spot and then walked in. You said to the hostess, you know what? I don't want that nice window seat over there. I actually want the average seat. And when we're done sitting, can you bring me the average menu? No. You're listening here because you want greatness. Well, greatness is not average, right? Greatness comes from doing things that everyone else is scared of doing. Greatness comes from doing the things that you never thought you had to do, becoming the person you never wanted yourself to become so you can live a life that most people will never have. Greatness is dying of any version of the man, woman, child you are today so you can rebirth the person you're supposed to be.
Is that the basis of the unbreakable?
The basis of the unbreakable to me is the resilience, is knowing that in life things are not going to go our way, and it's tough, and the whole Rocky scene. It's one of my. There's a reason people love it, right? It's like life is tough, it's mean, right? And it'll beat you up and it'll knock you down, and it'll keep you down if you let it. Cowards stay down, and you're not a coward, right? But unbreakable is you being able to face your darkest moments, your darkest fears, and not breaking. I always said, I'm like steel, baby. I may bend, but I don't break. You will not get me. You will not take my energy, my speed, my confidence, my conviction away from me. You might hurt it for a bit, right? It might get bruised. It might get punched down. It might get kicked down, but I'm going to get up. I'm going to get up.
What are some of the entrepreneurial adversities that you don't see talked about enough?
The failures. Like all we ever see is the successes, but we don't see the burnt ships and the failed ships, of all the other people. And the true failures. No one ever talks about the actual real sleepless nights. The hardship of having to wake up and face your team of people who are trusting in you, believing in you, and you can't even believe in yourself in the moment. You can't even stand the face you see in the mirror, but you got to find the strength. You got to find some commitment. You got to find something greater than you to get you up and to actually stay there in the moment and be able to still inspire and still show up and do the right activities, not out of fear, but out of a strength, so you can keep the ship moving forward. One other thing I learned this year, which is very interesting, say that because it's part of this, is I was a very linear, like black and white type of person, which isn't obviously a great thing. And I always used to say things like, when I get to, it's like, when I get there, then these things are going to happen. And the reality, so when I get to a point in my business where I can completely step out of it, right, and get a full CEO running it, and I'm going to get my, X amount of money a month, and I never have to worry, then I'm going to be able to have all these things. And the reality is no, because even when I get there and all those things happen, I'm going to have other problems in my life. They're just going to be bigger problems. And there's never a world where you don't have problems or you don't have things coming your way. And I realize that it doesn't matter about how much money and how much strength and how much commitment and how much knowledge you might have. Life's a series of problems, not all the time, but quite a bit of problems. And it's how you deal with those problems, how you face those problems, how you how you react to those problems that makes all the difference. And that's the difference about you being able to be happy today versus chasing some happiness that's actually probably never going to come tomorrow. Because as I even say it, I realize like, if you can't learn happiness and be happy today, how could you ever expect to be happy tomorrow? It just doesn't make sense.
Why do you think we fall into that trap of thinking
Chasing
that this
the
it's going to
hanging. It goes
stop?
back. It goes back to the before the internet. The whole saying of hanging out with the Joneses, right? Always looking at someone else, what they have that's better than me. Comparison, right? Comparisons like they say the comparison. What do they say a comparison is? Something like the enemy.
Thief of joy.
Yeah, the thief of joy. Comparison's the thief of joy, right? For sure. Like, I mean, yeah, for sure. But then, so then you take that fundamental. That to me is like a fundamental law, we want to call it. Like, that's a fundamental thing that's in life. Okay. Then you take that and now you add to where this world's going, the social media stuff, all this social, we see all this stuff. Like, have you ever seen so many like billionaire status things in your life before social media? Like, you knew it was out there, but it wasn't inundating you every single day. And now, so now you're comparing yourself to that craziness. And then you get into a world that I live in. So a world in entrepreneurship that we live in is, and where we focus, we only see and only hang out with the 1%ers. We don't see, like, and again, call me, you know, an ass. I don't see anything but the 1% because I don't want to surround myself around that. I don't even want to put attention and focus to that right now. I'm unfortunately not in my point in my life where I can talk about being significant and bring back all my millions to help the world. I'm in the point in my life where I got to help myself so I can help others. AK, I've said this on your podcast and I'll say it again. Are you willing to be incredibly selfish today so you can be incredibly generous tomorrow? Most people are not willing to be selfish, and that's why they can never be generous. So I'm becoming incredibly selfish and we're learning about what I need to do so then I can set myself up to a place where then I can always be able to give back and, you know, and have generosity and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you put us in a world where all we see is wins. No one ever talks about the failures. You put us in a world where that joy of, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. Well, like that's just failure right there, right? Like that's like that right there, honestly, is already a hard lesson in life. Like that's like, to me, is like a hurdle in life that's already hard enough. Like that's already hard enough, let alone trying to build a business and have kids and all these other things that life puts our way. Like that's a big one that you got to get over. And I believe that like, that one, yeah, it's you hit a sore spot for me because it's something that I've had a lot of challenge with, and that I'm working very hard to accept. But it's, you know, it's a subconscious thing. It takes time, right? So it's
Someone
just
that's
awareness.
listening to this is looking for a speaker for their event. What are you speaking on so they can make that decision?
I'm going to be, like right now, we are going to be talking about like the unbreakable sale, because everything I do is about sales, but really it's the unbreakable human being, how to become resilient and how to have, you know, competitiveness within yourself. So that no matter what happens, no matter what comes your way, as if it's a sales objection, if it's life in itself, if it's health, you become unbreakable, meaning your spirit will not break. You will not give up. You will not give in, and you will not settle for less than, because there's a lot of people that I see they're broken. They've accepted average. They accepted their current situation, even though it's nothing that they've ever wanted or desired. So many salespeople sit in the back seat. They don't sit in that front seat. And that's why there's something called the 1%ers. The one, you know what I mean? And I really want to see, how can we create more 1%ers or even 10%ers? Heck, I'll be happy creating more 10%ers, right? So it's about how do you go to near 4 death accidents? How do you become unbreakable when there's a AK-47 buried to the back of your head, kidnapped, blindfolded in a third world country? How do you become unbreakable when your business partner that you actually put your trust, your entire life in, build a $30 million company and then he completely screws you the next day? You go from literally being a hero to a zero. How do you become unbreakable when you're nearly 2 bankruptcies and not actually give in and sign the dotted paper and say, no, I will not do this. I will find a way. Creating that resilience so that no matter what happens in your life, you know you'll get through it. It might be ugly. It's going to be hard, but you will get through. And when you do, you will become a better, faster, and nicer human being. Let's call it that.
Fastest way and easiest way for people to connect with you.
Kayvon.com, Kayvon.com. You go there and you'll have all my socials. Any way you want to connect to me, you'll be able to connect to me. Kayvon.com.
Everyone listening to this, please share this episode. Greatly appreciate you. Please leave a review on the Culture Matters podcast of what you learned from today's episode. Kayvon, you're talking to yourself a year from now. What's that conversation look like?
The conversation, it's funny you said that, because I was going to be like, we need to do a end of the year, listen to this, and then do an end of the year podcast. And the conversation is, you did it. The conversation is what you learned in 2023, you're correct. That was not actually a growth year. That was your learning year. So that 2024 will be your growth year to your growth.
If you're listening to this, please share this out, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Leave a review, follow Kayvon. Have a great rest of your day. It's the Culture Matters podcast.